למען שמו. גם כי ילך בגיא צרה, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני ראוי לא אחסר, אדוני ראוי לא אחסר.
I want to thank Cantor Sam Levine, my father-in-law's cantor from Eastwood Meadwood Jewish Center, for participating in the service this morning. Usually I'm able to compartmentalize and put one hat off, put another hat on, being either the rabbi or the member of the family. So you'll have to excuse me if it doesn't work so well for me today. To be switching hats like that. So on behalf of the family, I just want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to thank the rabbi and cantor of Judy and David's Synagogue of Forest Hills Jewish Center, Jerry Skolnick and Henry Rosenblum, for being here. My classmate from rabbinical school, Marty Pasternak, is here as well. Old-time friends of ours, of Judy and my wife Lenore's, here, and people have come from far and wide, from our synagogue in Olney, Maryland as well, and you'll have to excuse the iPhone up here. My father-in-law's sister is watching from Chicago, not able to be here today. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We began our service with a recitation of Psalm 23 so beautifully, and we'll continue with a few more Tehillim, a few more Psalms as well, thus linking my father-in-law Ephraim King Leibowitz's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. Psalm 15. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai mi yagur ba'ohalecha, mi yishkon bahar kodshecha. Holech tamim ufoel tzedek v'dover emet bilvavo. Lo ragal al eshono lo asa l'reyehu ra'a, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. Nivzeh be'einav nim'as ve'et yirei Adonai yechabed, nishba lahara v'lo yamir. Kaspo lo natan beneshech v'shochad al naki lo lakach, ose ele lo yimot le'olam. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit, have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others, do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere the Lord. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever. And from Psalm 103. Kerachem av al banim, richam Adonai al yarei av. Ki hu yada yitzreinu zachur ki afar anachnu. Enosh kechatzir yamav, ketzitz hasadeh ken yatzitz. Ki ruach avrabo ve'enenu velo yakirenu od mekomo. V'chesed Adonai me'olam v'ad olam al yareyav, v'tzitkato livnei vanim. As a father has compassion for his children, God has compassion for those who show reverence. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are dust. The days of mortals are like grass. We flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over them, and they are no more, and no one can recognize where they grew. But God's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children, to all the reverent ones, endures age after age, unchanging. A few members of the family will be sharing a few words. We want to begin with my sister-in-law, Judy.
Daddy, you were a wonderful father who loved his family, his friends, and learning about the world. You were a tech nerd before the term even existed. You were always ahead of the curve when it came to technology, and it brought you great pleasure. You were the first person I know that actually used the internet for something useful. Most people your age are afraid of technology, but you embraced it. You understood from early on how technology could improve your life, how this treasure trove of information was out there waiting for you. With your wide-ranging interests, you could do research and learn about anything you wanted. Even when your eyesight was failing and using the computer was a challenge, you persisted. What we loved most about you was that you were a kind and gentle soul who cared deeply about your family, friends, and community. You welcomed David and Yonah into our family with love and treated them as your own sons. This was a blessing for Lenore and me. You always made a special effort to keep in touch with the people you cared about, not just your immediate family, but your extended family, cousins and friends far and wide. These weren't just courtesy calls. You truly needed to know how they were doing. Perhaps you could help them or at least wish them well. Whenever we had a family gathering, you made sure to sit with everyone individually for a few minutes and ask them about their lives. Whenever you were in shul, you did the same with your friends. Even when we visited Yonah's shul in Maryland, there was a whole group of people that you had to catch up with at Kiddush. In fact, even in the hospital this last time, when you were laid up and in such great pain, you still had the energy and desire to show your love to the people around you. Asking Gabi and Ilan about their wedding plans, asking Elisheva about her kids at school, asking Eliza and Eitan how school was going, checking how Sarah's first day of school went, and asking Daniel about his new job offer. When you saw Joshua and saw how upset he was, you told him to be strong and hold on to his family relationships. Every time you reached out to someone, whether family or friend, it was purely genuine. You really wanted to know how the other person was doing. Daddy, this was a very special trait that we will cherish forever. Your dedication to Mommy and her happiness was endless. Your life together was filled with joy of shared interest and pleasures. Together you traveled the world, exploring Europe, Asia, South America, Israel, and the Middle East, and national parks across the country and Canada. Sundays were spent together, whether it was ice skating in Prospect Park, going to the theater, museums, opera. Although you sometimes fell asleep at the opera, you still went because you knew it was important to Mommy. Sunday evenings always ended with a quiet dinner for two at your favorite restaurant discussing the day's activity. Even when you were so sick these last couple of weeks, you would ask how Mommy was doing, concerned that the strain would be too great for her. Daddy, your love of Judaism reached no bounds. You loved going to shul and enjoyed everything Jewish. Every Shabbat, you would spend time reading a Devar Torah you printed out from the internet. You were dedicated to East Midwood Jewish Center, serving on their board of trustees. Late in life, you learned the skills necessary to chant the Haftorah, which you did regularly in the early minyan. During the past year when you were struggling, going to shul was one of the things that would always boost your spirits. In fact, during the 2 Shabbatot that I was with you in the hospital, I played Kabbalat Shamat music for you. Even though you were in such pain, it brought a smile to your face and you danced by wiggling your toes. I love spending that time with you and being able to give you a little moment of enjoyment in your final days. Daddy, we love you very much and we'll miss you and your smiling face.
My wife, his daughter, Lenore.
Many of you here today know that my dad fell 3 weeks ago in a place he loved, the Berkshires, coming back from another place he loved, synagogue. He fractured his back and was in the hospital for 2 weeks before he went into hospice. The morning that we left the hospital, I asked my dad's case manager, Anne Marie, if she might be able to write down the names of all the people at the hospital that had cared for my dad. Later that morning, she walked into his room and handed me a piece of paper with 35 handwritten names, the 35 angels who had cared for my dad in the hospital. The reason that I asked for this list was that when I arrived at the hospital, a week after my dad had been admitted, I felt like I had walked into a special community that my dad had created from his hospital bed. He knew just about everyone by name and took the time each and every day to be kind, gentle, and thankful for all their care, and funny too the first few days before he began to decline. One of the nursing assistants, Tori, told me that she had stayed at my dad's bedside for 4 hours one night after her shift ended at 11 p.m. to make sure he was settled and to chat with him. She was one of the lucky ones who realized very quickly what a special guy my dad was. When I reached out to my own community of special friends and family on Wednesday afternoon to tell them that my dad had died, I felt both comfort and pride when reading their messages and getting their phone calls. Here are a few of the messages I received. I will always remember him as a kind and gentle man. He always had a genuine interest in our lives. Your dad was such a sweet and loving and interesting person. Your father was so kind and thoughtful when my own father died. Just one reflection of the essential goodness that he exuded. He mattered in my life and so many others. Your father was a special soul, always full of both heart and logic. At our synagogue in Maryland, where my husband has been the rabbi for 24 years, congregants would regularly stop me and tell me that my dad had just called them to wish them a happy birthday or to inquire about their health. When close friends of mine had a death in their family, he would often ask me for their phone number and make a call to express his condolences to them. When my dad was in the hospital and in hospice earlier this week, Mike, the gentleman that my parents hired this summer to drive my dad to appointments and to walk with him, came to visit my dad 3 times. My dad's heart doctor in Manhattan called my mom at home on Wednesday to tell her how sorry he was about my dad's death and how much he will miss him. My dad had a way of connecting with everyone that he knew in such a special way. He had the gift of creating communities of connection with everyone who had the privilege to know him. A week ago in the hospital, we all had some difficult conversations together as a family with my father's doctors about our goals for my dad's health. My dad was well enough then, about a week ago, to participate in these conversations and decisions. He was very clear with us about his goals for pain management and comfort care and shared his wishes with us. Before we had the hospital start his first dosage of morphine, which we knew would make my dad sedated and potentially hasten his death, I thanked my dad for many things. I thanked him for being a role model for me about how to treat people with kindness. I thanked him for his patience, his thoughtfulness, and his optimism. I didn't get a chance then to thank him for instilling his love of so many other things in me, including a love of Judaism, love of studying and reading, a love for long walks, hiking, and traveling. My dad gave me many incredible gifts in the 56 years that he was my father. Perhaps the biggest gift that he may have given me was that I watched him time and time again touch people's lives in an incredibly caring and genuine manner. Of course, he left my mom, my sister, our husbands, and all his grandchildren with more than enough love and special memories that we will cherish forever. But I also feel incredibly lucky that my dad also touched so many of you with his warmth, his caring, his gentleness, his genuine interest in all of your lives. My dad was not just a role model for me, but for many of you sitting here today. May his kindness, his gentleness, his optimism continue to shine in all of us as we remember the wonderful man that he was.
Two of his grandchildren, my daughters Eliza and Elisheva, are going to share a few words too.
Papa was one. He was one of the strongest people I've ever known. I remember when I was younger, he used to do this thing, play this game with us, where he would grab your thumb with his and squeeze as hard as he could until you couldn't handle it anymore. We all would take turns seeing who could last the longest. But he wasn't just the strongest person I've known, he was one of the most insightful. He loved museums, especially art museums. And when it became harder for him to walk, see, and hear, he couldn't really go to museums anymore. My mom and I recently went to visit Papa and Grandma this summer. One of the days we were there, we spent the entire day in a museum with Papa. I think it was his first time back in a long time. I remember walking around the museum with him and telling him about the paintings, listening to the audio about the specific painting and relaying to him what was said. He stood in front of some of the paintings for minutes, just taking in all of the colors and the figures. Ever since I was a kid, I knew how much he loved museums, and I wanted to do something more for him than what I had done that day. An idea came to me, and later that same day, I pulled Papa aside, and I asked what he thought about me taking him to museums in New York one Sunday every month. As soon as I asked him, I could see how happy that he looked. I wanted to take him back to his favorite museums in the city, and spend as much time there as he wanted. I knew he hadn't been to some of his favorite museums in the city in a long time. Even though I never got the chance to follow through on my promise to him, I know how much it would have meant to him. Papa, I'm so sorry I never got the chance to take you back. I will miss you every single day, and I loved you more than anything. It is hard to find the right words to express the feeling of losing your first grandparent. For 28 years, I have been blessed with 4 healthy, caring, supportive, and active grandparents. Grandparents who I have celebrated countless holidays, Shabbatot, birthdays, B'nai Mitzvah, and Simchas with throughout the years. Almost no one in my peer group has shared this blessing with me, and it is not something I have taken for granted. When Papa fell a few weeks ago, and I first went to visit him in the hospital, I had 2 days to sit with him and spend some precious time together. When it looked like things were getting worse, I started to think about what it would be like to lose him. How would it feel to not have this wonderful blessing of all of my grandparents with me? What would it mean? I've also been wondering if there is meaning on the timing of his death. The 10 days in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are considered to be very holy days in the Jewish tradition. It is when God decides if our prayers will be answered and if we will be inscribed in the book of life for the coming year. We are supposed to think about our actions the past year, make phone calls of apology, and atone for our sins. And although Papa will not be inscribed for the coming year, I think this is a chance to think about this time of year and how we want to be remembered going forward. We should think about Papa and the way that he lived his life, his values, and his relationships. Maybe this is our chance to take those qualities with us into this new year so that they will not be forgotten. Maybe each of us will and can take a piece of Papa with us into 5779. In the past 2 days, people have reached out with their support and their outpouring of love. Many people have suggested that I would find comfort in being with my family and in sharing memories of him. Others have suggested I think about the attributes of me that would make him proud. I have so many memories that I can share, so I will name a few. When I was 5 years old, Grandma and Papa took me to Disney World for my birthday. We rode the It's a Small World ride every day, and we ate at Friendly's for dinner every night. I have another memory of sitting in the basement in Brooklyn with Papa as he dressed up as a clown in the same costume he would use to visit people in the hospital in order to make them smile. We have traveled to Israel together. We have had so many Pesach Seders, Thanksgiving meals, and weekends together as a family. So many times throughout my life, people have told me stories of how Papa made their day or their week through his conversations with them. He cared so deeply about connecting with people one-on-one. Not only did he make every effort to call friends and family on their birthdays, but he would set reminders on his many devices to check in with people and follow through with people from previous conversations he had had with them. If someone told him about an interesting article to read or a product online to check out, he would remind himself to do that so that he could follow through. Papa was the kind of man who listened with intent and made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Even to strangers, hospital nurses, or a guest at a meal, he made an effort to ask questions and get to know someone without passing any form of judgment. He gave everyone a chance. These are the characteristics that I hope and pray I can embody in my life in his honor. There is no good way to describe how it feels to say goodbye to someone that has been part of your life forever. I'm sure I will think about it today and every day for many years to come. I hope that Elon, Aliza, Eitan, Joshua, Daniel, and Sarah, and I will have the chance to continue honoring Papa and continue to make him proud for many years to come.
The first time I met my father-in-law, he was in his underwear. I don't say this to be disrespectful. I say it because that first moment we met and the way he was dressed says a lot about the kind of person Ephraim Leibowitz was. Lenore and I had started going out a few weeks before, and after a few dates, she invited me to her home for Shabbat. I was in rabbinical school at the time, and I was looking forward to a home-cooked meal. When I arrived, Dad was exercising, walking briskly up and down the stairs in his shirt and pants. He said hello and kept on walking and talking. When he was done, he took off his pants, didn't say, "Excuse me while I change my clothes." He just kept on talking. What was I supposed to do? Where was I supposed to look? How could I excuse myself without making that first encounter even more awkward? I knew that everything was going to be okay, though, because unlike other stories of fathers in their underwear threatening their daughter's date with a rifle, Dad was pleasant, talking to me about my studies and about that week's parsha from the Torah. Now, it just so happens that that's the way my father-in-law greeted his future son-in-law for the first time, because he did the same thing with David. That encounter with Dad took place nearly 34 years ago, and he was just about the age I am now. Yet it seemed like yesterday. 34 years passed by in what seems to be a blink of an eye. Over that time, Lenore and I got married, Judy and David got married, and Ephraim was blessed to see 7 grandchildren and 1 grandson's fiancée. In fact, when Elon and Gabi and Eitan and Daniel went together to see him in the hospital last week, it was Gabi that Dad greeted first, not his grandchildren. Just like him, wanting to make the newcomer feel comfortable first. We've heard so much about Dad already from his daughters and his granddaughters. So I just wanted to highlight 3 elements of Dad's personality that I feel convey exactly the kind of person he was. The way he treated me was the way he treated everyone in the family. Dad made it a point not just to regularly call his sisters Roz and Helene, may she rest in peace, speaking to Roz from the hospital bed just last week as well, but he would call his nieces and nephews, his cousins, and even members of my mother-in-law's family, including her cousins and her brother David. He was the one to reach out, not just in their time of need, but more often he would call just to say hi and to share a pleasant word. Family was very important to him, and he did all he could to maintain a constant, loving connection with everyone. Certainly a lot of that love and attention was focused on his grandchildren. It was truly a blessing to see how many of them made the trip up to Massachusetts and how each of them was able to spend precious several moments telling him how much they loved him. And he loved all of you so very much. You could see it from the moment you were born, when he got to hold you. You could see it from the moment you were born, when he held you at your baby namings or births. You could see him smile from ear to ear, and the tears of joy he shed, that you knew he felt he was so blessed to be able to be a grandfather. Dad also liked to encourage people to do their best and to excel at what they did. He knew that I was a shy, introverted person. But since I was in rabbinical school, he felt he could take advantage of me and have me teach a Torah study class one Shabbat morning at East Midwood Jewish Center. He wanted me to get out of my comfort zone and begin to have the opportunity to teach, something I would have to do a lot once I became a rabbi. Though that first class was daunting, I appreciated his confidence in me and his encouragement. I know that he conveyed that same encouragement to everyone in the family, whether it was with one nephew about legal work for a patent, or a niece about her health or business opportunities, or anybody else with anything like that. His love for us was shown through his presence and in his helping us to see the best in ourselves. And finally, Ephraim loved being Jewish. He enjoyed being involved in the East Midwood Jewish Center and Kesher Israel in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and he loved going to shul every Shabbat. No matter how good or bad he was feeling, he made the effort to go to shul. Often, even with a terrible singing voice, he would do the Haftorah as well. And when he knew that the end was near, he said the Shema in his hospital bed. My daughter did not see this speech before she wrote her speech, and I'm proud to say she's a rabbi's daughter. In one of the central prayers of this high holiday season, we sing the following line: B'Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, u'v'yom tzom kippur yechatemun. On Rosh Hashanah, our names are written either in the book of life or death, and on Yom Kippur, our names are sealed. I realize now we shouldn't understand that prayer literally. Dad's name today, I think, wasn't written in the book of death on Rosh Hashanah on Monday. No, that prayer, I think, conveys the hope that we do everything we can to have a life well lived, a life that is worthy of being remembered, a life that will keep on living well after we are gone. Instead of a harsh prayer based on fear and reward and punishment, I would rather see this refrain as a constant reminder that we need to do everything in our power to live our lives as if we are being written in the book of life. That certainly was how Ephraim lived his life. Nearly 61 years of marriage, 2 children, 7 grandchildren, traveled the world, and most importantly, established deep, meaningful relationships with all of us. Tehi nishmato tzura b'tzura chayim. May Dad's soul be bound in the bond of eternal life. Amen. We heard Psalm 23 chanted so beautifully a few moments ago. If we know it in English, let's say it out loud together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Just a couple of announcements. From here, we'll proceed to Mount Carmel Cemetery in the Glendale section of Queens, I believe. From there, the Shiva will commence at the family home in Brooklyn. Tomorrow night, really, for people to be invited to 8 o'clock for Minyan and Shiva till 9:30 tomorrow night. Sunday, noon to 9, with Minyan at 6:45 p.m. Monday from noon to 9 with Minyan at 6:45 p.m. And Yom Kippur ends Shiva, so 11 to 1 on Tuesday for Shiva at 2223 Avenue O. We rise now for the El Male, which Cantor Sam Levine will chant for us.
רחמים שוכן במרומים המצב מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה ומעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת אפרים מלך בן בנימין וינתה שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תהי מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, אז תראהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure. To the soul of Ephraim Melech ben Binyamin Veyenta, to the soul of my father-in-law who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. Amen. Amen.